Welcome back. You're watching Morning Live. Thank you for choosing to stay with us. It's a celebration of South African lawyer and anti-apartheid activist Bram Fischer's 107th birthday this year. The Mangaung Metro in Bloemfontein will once again trace the life and times of the Free Stater who strived for social cohesion and social justice in South Africa. Throughout the Bram Fischer Memorial Week, the city seeks to sustain the legacy of the icon Bram Fischer in order to educate and inspire the entire nation, particularly the youth and students who are the future of the country. Joining me now in studio is GM of Communications, Mr. Qondile Khedama. Mr. Khedama, thank you very much for joining us here on Morning Live. Why is it so important that these heroes are celebrated right now, and also that a lot of the celebration is focused around educating the youth?
Well, the time is more relevant as you are putting it. Remember, one of the things that we had thought of as the city, it is to, as you put it, to sustain the history of these leaders, because you can't leave history to just go by without passing that knowledge to the up-and-coming generation. So it is against that background that the executive mayor of Mangaung Metro, Councillor Thabo Manyoni, decided that we'll have this week, the pending week, to celebrate the life and times of Bram Fischer. But the good thing is that we have learned from last year in our inaugural memorial.
Because that's what I wanted to ask. How different is this from last year?
What is happening is that we have seen the appetite of the community with regard to the lecture of Bram Fischer. The mayor then escalated it and said, why can't we do something beyond the lecture? But most importantly, it is to make sure that we also involve our youth. He then decided that he brings the theatre production, the Waltz of Bram Fischer, which he will launch on Tuesday. It will run both Friday and Saturday. But what we did, we staggered it into two. It will be during the day, that is in the afternoon, because he also doesn't want to tamper with the learners of particularly grade 12 and grade 11. So it will be, he will launch it on Tuesday in the evening, also have it on both Friday and Saturday. Well, the intention is to really inculcate this knowledge into our youth. But one important thing, it is to also bring Bram Fischer into life in the city. So on Thursday, that is in the morning, he will unveil the murals. These murals will be form part of the event where he actually names the entire precinct after Fischer himself. So that is the most significant gesture, really. And then in the evening, you then have your main lecture, which is composed, which has got good panelists. Part of the panelists is your MEC for Arts, Sports and Recreation in the province, Mathabo Leeto, who would form part of, because it also relates to issues of heritage. But moving forward, you'd also have a number of academics, because this thing, we have given it two spins. Both the academic and the political spin, because the intention really it is to impart that information to the information connoisseurs, of course.
I want to come back to one of the interesting things, and I think from a dialogue perspective and incorporating the youth, it's important that you actually approach it from both perspectives. But the theatre aspect is a novel and new idea, and I do think that there might be a bit of excitement around it. It's scheduled for the 21st, the 24th, and the 25th of April at the Civic Theatre in Bloemfontein. Just talk to me about the discussion around including the theatre aspect, because I think in many ways it's unheard of.
Look, there are so many ways to tell the story.
Yes.
And that is what we've actually explored. We then said, beyond just your presentation, your whether you want to call it academic exercise of making a speech presentation, what do you do? Because ours is to make sure that we bring in as many people as possible. We then decided on the theatre production, because the theatre production, you're telling a story in a simpler way, in an interesting way, in a very...
People can connect.
People can connect, it's closer. So that is how we decided on the theatre itself. But also, it talks to a number of things, because you're also saying what do we do in the theatrical space as the city? Because that's one thing that the executive mayor is passionate about, the literature, the theater, and those are the spaces where you would find that most of our youth are not necessarily interested. So we want to bring
but
that.
They should be.
They should be. So we're trying to bring that element. I know that we have a pending program that we didn't talk about this year, but I'm sure it's something that we'll discuss as we unfold our program next year, because we want to bring a new feature all the time, so that at least it
stays fresh.
It's fresh and it interests people, because you know there are many ways in which you can present your literature.
I want to bring this conversation very quickly. We're going to touch on all the other things. There's a law faculty address. You've mentioned some of the discussions that will happen, but I just want to quickly talk about reflecting on the history and the time right now where we're finding these so-called xenophobic attacks for our nationals. How important is it just to educate South Africans again about where we've come from, the roles that other countries have played in our history, the roles that individuals have played in, and where we find ourselves today? Because I do feel that we've also had the issue around statues and reflecting on history. Will those kind of conversations come up in the Bram Fischer Memorial Week, or would you expect that to be a talking point at some point?
No, it's you're bringing an important factor, Sam, because what we did not so long, I think 2 weeks back, we partnered with the University of the Free State, dealing specifically with issues of flags, symbols, and the statues themselves. But, Bram Fischer, it's interesting that our icon is Bram Fischer. Bram Fischer was a unifier, coming from an affluent family, being white, Afrikaner, but he has been able to represent our struggle as the downtrodden. Now, that element is very important because it also talks to reconciliation. And that is why we then say Bram Fischer is an embodiment of freedom, because his life encapsulates both, if you want to say, both black and white life. And we then say, in his name, what is it that it's supposed to happen? What do we see out of him? So it is that education we want to impart to the broader community of Mangaung and that of the country. Now, also the interesting aspect of it is that we have brought in academics, your historians, Dr. Twala. We have brought in your Afri Forum. They'll form part of the panel. We have brought in the DSG of the ANC, to bring that a dimension, because ours is to unite and to educate and impart that knowledge to the broader community. Because look, the situation is currently fluid. Somebody has to bring some kind of sanity into what is currently existing in our community.
Very quickly, for anybody, Mr. Khedama, who wants to find out more about the Bram Fischer Memorial Week, I know that Morning Life is scheduled to broadcast from there as well. But anybody else who is interested in finding out more, where can they go? They
can visit our website, Mangaung, the Mangaung website. There's a lot of work that we're doing as we do now, and I think we're existing also in the social media space, and they will continue to engage. But the most important thing is that the theater production is free. We would want people to
come in their numbers,
bring their kids also, bring that to those people, because that is the leadership of tomorrow.
Okay, let me give you the dates. The Bram Fischer plays on the 21st, 24th and 25th of April at the Civic Theatre in Bloemfontein. The Law Faculty Address is on the 22nd of April at the University of Free State. The Declaration of Bram Fischer Precinct, that's on the 23rd of April. That's at the Civic Theatre Bloemfontein. And the Bram Fischer Memorial Lectures on the 23rd of April at the Butroski Hall in the Central University of Technology. So it's a jam-packed week. That was the GM of Communications, Mr. Qondile Khedama, talking to us about the Bram Fischer Memorial Week, which the city seeks to use to sustain the legacy of the icon Bram Fischer in order to educate and inspire the entire nation. That's very important, particularly the youth and students who are the future of our country. Let us know what you think. Morning Live at sabc.co.